nobody there. And so in order to keep ourselves busy, we got up underneath the steps where the metal bins are. And you know how,
Yeah.
well, Betsy started it, let me just say. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get in there with you. And we cleaned it up.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was always a little bit of a hard one to get to because we usually try and wait till the cans are pulled, and sometimes nobody's there, or whatever.
Well, I figured that was true.
But I mean, I was over there this afternoon getting an interview, and the site looked nice. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
still a
And
lot of customers. I mean, we're still a good bit of traffic.
well, this was Easter Sunday, it was kind of silly for us to be there probably. Um, but yeah, this Sunday, Maria's, she can only do it in the morning. So we're just trying to figure out. I'm going to email you and let you know kind of the final word on that.
Okay.
But she was going to come a little earlier, I think.
Yeah. Okay. We're doing the compost giveaway on Saturday.
Yeah, I know. Well, we thought it would be great. I can't be there, but I think Betsy's going to be there in the morning. She's hoping to get a bag of compost.
Okay.
But
Well,
she should just get an honorary bag of compost.
I was just going to say, yeah, if I can set one aside, if she can't get there, just let me know. I'll get one to her.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the reason why she's going on Saturday to get some compost. Yeah, this is strange, isn't it? That no. Oh.
You have a message.
Oh, I have a message.
Yeah, from Christine. This is Serena. Hi, Serena. Monty Harris is in the attendance area. Should they be a panelist? I think yes.
Yes. Okay.
They're guests, speakers, so I think they should be, right?
Oh, Monty's just joined us as a new SWAC member.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Cool. Anyway.
No pots though, right? No gardening pots. That's that. Yeah, in the twos.
Please. Yeah, people always throw them in.
Yeah. Well, we actually added a little bit to like we taped it. Did you see that?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I might be able to. That's like a post-it that's taped on there.
It's just just some paper, and we were gonna use a Sharpie on the signs, but we decided to wait just to make sure.
Yeah, I might be able to actually make a little label. I have a label maker that's got some pretty good all-weather stuff. I might be able to make one and fit it in there. Gardening. What would you call it? Gardening pots?
Yeah, it seems like there's been quite a few, and there's also they look like and no 5-gallon buckets.
Correct.
And I don't know if you see the big, they must be like 20-gallon containers that end up.
Well, that's even no 5-gallon buckets. Now, like Vanderlyn takes 5-gallon buckets. Matter of fact, they take them and prefer them. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, hi all. Sorry, there's a lot of people. Uh-oh. My video is not working. Can you all hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And my video says that you cannot start the video because the host has stopped it.
Oh.
And I just used an old link because I couldn't find anything new sent, so I wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah, I don't either. I couldn't get on.
Could you try, this is Serena, whoever just said they couldn't start the video, could you try that again? The settings are set that you should be allowed to start your own video.
Well, usually that would be the case. This is Liz Palmer, and I just did it again, and it said you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Just did it again.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
There it goes again. I'll just keep doing it. Yep, again. I don't know. That's a new one.
So can I make a recommendation that we delete all of these county meetings and then send a new one? Because we seem to consistently be having a problem with the
Yeah.
links. Everybody's calendar has the old link. It's to hold the calendar, but the link isn't in it. So we either have to have the link with that calendar hold or something, but this is pretty disruptive to the beginning of our meetings.
I agree. Usually we get a new link with each meeting, so I don't know why we're doing it like this with this one.
Yeah. So I apologize, guys. I don't think I can do anything about getting on my video because I'm getting the same message. And it may be I was just on a GoToMeeting webinar, so maybe there's some camera conflict. I have no clue, but we'll make it work. So welcome everybody. Christine, I think I'm just looking at participants. From the SWAC, we have you, me, Terry, and our new SWAC member, Monty. Hi, Monty. I'm waving. And did I say Terry? We have Terry too. And then we have Liz and Phil and Lance are on, and Serena. And I sent a link to Charisse, so I think she should be here momentarily. So I will pull up. So I do think we have a quorum for reviewing the minutes. And I apologize again. Oh, there's Margaret's on now too. Hi, Margaret. So oh, I was muted for some reason. Christine, Charisse is here now too. Okay, so I think we're ready to start. Everybody seems, the only person I can see on video is Christine. Is that the same with everybody else? We have Melanie Arthur.
The only person I could see Phil just a minute ago, but the only person I can see is Christine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm now getting after the restarts, the video message. That's
Okay. All right.
It doesn't allow for video for me anyway.
I'm much better looking on radio.
And this is Serena. Are you able to start your video?
No, I'm getting the same message, Serena.
I see your video now, Anne.
Okay. We're back.
So I don't know what the original settings of this meeting are, but I'm going to go ahead and make everyone a co-host so you can, and I'm sorry, I don't know why or how this video was, or how this was set up. So again, I'm just going to make everyone a co-host so you can start your video. That seems to be the workaround right now.
Great.
And then I'll have EJ take a look into whatever the setup is going forward. And so as I'm doing this, go ahead and hopefully I can make everyone a co-host and it'll be fine.
Okay, so I'm trying to share my screen and it said share all panelists who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, only host. So hopefully this will work.
Okay. So hopefully I've made everyone a co-host. And you need to start sharing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to try. It's not letting me do it, Serena. There's some weird settings. Can you just pull up the minutes? Do you have the minutes in the agenda?
I can find them. It's interesting. I'm looking at the sharing options now and things are toggling as I'm looking at it and I'm not touching anything. So there might be some weird thing happening in Zoom world, but if you give me just one moment, I can find the minutes and the agenda in my email.
Okay, great. Thank you, Serena. And I'm sorry, this is a lot for you to jump in and try to troubleshoot. So I don't know if folks had a chance to review the minutes. I'm hoping so. I think they all look good to me. If anybody, if nobody has any changes, I would like a motion to approve the minutes for people who attended the last meeting. And maybe we can just do that most easily by saying, is there anybody who does not want to approve the meeting? Okay, I am going to assume that the March minutes are approved. So thank you for that. So I'd like to start our new meeting. I have to read this disclaimer with our new agenda. So this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A14, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, I have to read them, Ann Johnson, Christine Hirsch-Putnam, Margaret Eldridge, Monty Harris, and Terry Kent. The opportunity for the public to access in the electronic meeting are posted to the Albemarle County website on the Board of Supervisors homepage and on the Albemarle County calendar. All right, we got through that, so we can get started. Thank you. So Serena, just let me know when you have things up. Otherwise, I'll just use it off my screen. So I want to let you all know that today we're going to have Rob Dubas from Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful. Oh, great. Thank you. He is the program coordinator for them. He was instrumental in helping them do their statewide litter and cost study. So I asked him to join us this afternoon and, share, information about the study, but also, sort of what's happening from it and all of that. Hey, Donna. So I'm excited about that. Peggy is not here to report out on the Governor's Plastic Waste Prevention Advisory Group. I wanted to let you all know that I actually got a call from the Governor's office last week, and they have asked me to join the advisory committee on plastic waste prevention. So theoretically, that's going to start next month. It's a 2-year appointment. It is going to go, obviously into the next administration. They are very anxious to get some immediate recommendations together. So they were saying, anticipate pretty intense work over the summer with recommendations to the governor's office in the fall. So I think that that'll be a very interesting connection for our committee. Lance, I was supposed to talk to you about funding sources for the county. I've listed a couple here on the agenda. I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you about that. I think I sent some information on the COVID relief package. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but I'm also happy to talk to you about other, private sector initiatives that may apply. Terry and I need to connect. Terry, maybe I could ask you to send me a prompt on this. I totally forgot about this. To talk about putting together a news story to raise awareness about issues around illegal dumping. I think the presentation we have this afternoon will lend itself nicely to inspiring us to do that. I did follow up with Scott DeFife, so I'm sad that Jesse isn't here, but Terry, I'm sure you can pick this up, and told him that maybe one of our barriers to the program is the cost for some of the wineries in terms of the larger collection carts or can't remember the term you use for some of the bigger ones. Scott said he thought they could support. It would likely be the Glass Recycling Foundation. So he is eager to follow up. So that's a conversation we should probably have. I think once we really understand how many, what size, that would be a great follow up on that, because I think they'd be a resource for us. Serena, can you scroll up a little bit more? And last but not least, Phil, you were going to follow up with Patrick McDonald to discuss the caps on policy around bottle recycling. I put the note in from our November meeting with his colleague, Dan, but I didn't know if you had had a chance to do any follow-up on this.
I have. He says they themselves at the plant are, he used the term agnostic. That I'm still left with the people we sell our product to at Madison Heights. Sort of the opinion that it looks like contamination, so they judge it as contamination. So I'll keep sort of poking around about that.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. All right. So, we're missing a number of folks today, but Christine, maybe you, and I don't know if Betsy's on, if you all want to give the report out on the Outreach and Communications Subcommittee.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So we actually did meet and trying to follow all the protocol for a subcommittee meeting. We met last Friday, and also I just want to welcome Monty Harris, who is a new SWAC member, reached out to both Anne and I, somebody who's really interested in doing something about the plastic problem and reducing waste in general. So he was able to join our meeting, and also Melanie, who I believe is participating today with us. I was able to meet her through Tracy Leverty at Keep Virginia Beautiful. And she had, she's been somebody who's been picking up litter on her road for years and years. And, I don't know if she had contacted them through their March campaign with Do Beautiful Acts, but Tracy connected us and we had a great conversation, and she also joined our meeting, and we had a meeting today with Tracy about litter and what we can do in Albemarle County to reduce the litter, because one of the things that we both agreed on, doing a lot of litter pickup in the last month, a lot of it seems to be single-use beverage containers. It looks like people are throwing it out the window on their way home. So we had a good discussion about that in our meeting. So some of the things that we talked about with the recycling ambassador program is up and running. It's been really Betsy, myself, and our volunteer Maria, we've been doing sort of an overlapping 3-hour shift on Sundays. And I feel like we've had a good response there. I just want to say a lot of people are now in the habit of removing the caps on the number 1 plastics. And but still people are befuddled about what to do with their 5s. And there's also there's a lot of the polypropylene film that is going into the film container as well. I just got the Recycling Ambassador program approved as a Rivanna Master Naturalist opportunity, but I have yet to get any takers on that. I know that Betsy's got a couple people who have expressed some interest in that. We also, so just continuing to think about how we can recruit more volunteers for that program and expand. I feel like every one of those bins could use somebody there to guide that process. And then we ended the month of March. I thought we were able to talk to a lot of people about doing a trash cleanup. Tracy for the Do Beautiful Acts through Keep Virginia Beautiful. And Tracy said she's going to try to pull that data. And hopefully we will get some feedback about how many people in Albemarle County actually did go out and pick up trash. And So hopefully that's going to happen. And I know, Anne, you've got this up here, this idea of creating some webinars on recycling for youth. And I'm hoping to get with Terry at some point when she's got time to pick her brain about how to best go about that, since she's already doing it with, you know, Better World Betty.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I think that is it.
Well, first off, thank you so much for all of the time you are dedicating to, one, leading this committee and then doing the ambassadors program on top of it. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to hear that it's actually happening. I think probably with COVID, volunteers are going to be a bit scarce, but hopefully maybe in a couple of months that will open up and people will feel more comfortable, you know, I think doing that sort of work. So fingers crossed. But really, thank you so much.
I have a comment. So UVA Office of Sustainability is doing for Earth Day sharing videos that basically there's an open invitation to create 60-second videos with your phone, or even longer, 2 to 3 minute if you want. And so I know that C3 has some existing videos, but I am doing some on recycling right, like with Better World Betty. So I did one on film plastics, but I did think of you guys and mentioned it that I would bring it up to Dana, because Dana Schroeder at UVA is coordinating all of the videos.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need those videos by the 12th. And I'm not sure how long, like to do a 60-second video, it took me way too long. So I'm not sure how many I'll be able to do, just to get a lot of information into 60 seconds. But I chose to do the plastic film recycling, which ones to use and which ones not to. But I'm happy to, you know, I thought it would be great, Christine, to like plug the 60 seconds of like plug the ambassador program and do a call out for volunteers. Also, you know, like the opaque containers, that's like I'm learning new stuff. And if I'm learning new stuff, that's a real problem, because I'm theoretically supposed to know, because people ask me these questions all the time. So I wasn't opaque containers are not allowed. So I think that, you know, maybe Christine, you and I can talk about whichever ones I end up doing this weekend on my, you know, just volunteer wise. But I'm happy to film you, like do something. I want to dedicate at least an hour to it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'm up for any of it.
Yeah, it's not all opaque containers, just opaque PET. So.
Can I throw in something before we move on?
Yes, I see your hand up, Liz.
Yeah, okay. It's been up for a while. I'm trying to slide in. A couple of things. First of all, I've now forgotten what I wanted to say because I've been waiting. Not that that's a complaint. I'm sorry. It sounded like one. The board, there's a couple things. The board of supervisors has been looking at funding for a master plan for the area where the potential new next convenience center on the north side will go. And there is potential, Lance can, I see Lance's video goes on. He's, I'm saying everything, Lance, is potential. Everything's got a qualifier, but I just wanted them to know that the discussion is taking place to do some master planning of a property that is owned by the county now that may be the home of the future Northern Convenience Center. And if we're really lucky, a place to eventually put the paper sort. So we'll just have to follow that and make sure and see if it pans out. I did want to mention that Lance wrote a wonderful information piece and resolution for the Scottsville Town Council to vote on the Southern Convenience Center. And I think after they vote on that and approve it in its final form, we should send it out to the SWAC committee so that they can use it for informational information. And there was a third thing, but honestly, I've forgotten. So I'll have to butt in later and try to do my third thing.
Thanks for that, Liz. Oh, that's exciting. So we'll put you on the hook for keeping us up to date on that master plan development.
And I'll just let you know to set expectations on the timing of that. I believe that either in June or July that county and county school staff will be coming back with a request for an appropriation. So that's a well out. We're still in the initial phases of scoping it because it is there are several potential uses, but several of them are school system related. So there will be programming to do for individual functions and sizing, and so it won't be a quick thing. You know, in terms of like an update per month, or you know, maybe like a quarterly check-in for a while until things get a little more solid. But I would say of the Albemarle County functions that are there, of the ones that have been discussed, I think the one that is presumed to be included among all of the things would be a convenience center. And I'm hoping that we also can manage to reserve some space for other solid waste functions, but really there are other, you know, local government needs as well, and that will really be a matter for the Board of Supervisors.
Lance, from our point of view, it's all about waste and recycling. What other priorities?
And I thought of my third thing, if I could throw it in really quick. The schools, there has been a flurry of emails between the schools and the Board of Supervisors on having the schools do an educational thing on litter, and they are interested in it. And I don't quite know how that's going to be coordinated with the SWAC or with Ravenna Solid Waste Authority. I know that Phil has connections with the people who are looking at how that would work on the Albemarle County School level. And so I don't know if they'll reach out to him first, but I'm hoping, Phil, if they do reach out to you, you will let us know to see if they need any help. I did offer educational materials from Keep America Beautiful, and that we have been discussing that on the SWAC level. And so I'm just not sure, but I wanted just to give you guys a heads up on that. And that's it.
Okay. Christine, can you put an action item just so we will follow the progress of the school litter education program? So we'll figure out if there's, I mean, that with our youth webinar thing, that might be a good linkage. I will, since we are talking about litter, and Terry, thank you so much for sharing that sort of 60-minute, you know, little videos. I don't want to be in one of them, but maybe somebody else will. But there is a piece of Garth Road that has really bad plastic litter. And I have been wanting to clean it up, but I'm afraid because it's Garth Road, there's no shoulder, it's trees. It's right by Elizabeth, and there's a drainage. And what you can see, it's a great example of how litter moves through the environment, because you have this hill goes down a slope, and then there's kind of a little wetland, and you can just see all of this material. And this is this, you know, scenic bike route that everybody takes, and, you know, the fishing lake is here, and it's really bad. And now is the time before the poison ivy comes out. But I'm trying to figure out, I need like pylons or something to get cars to slow down, because if you're down there, you're blind from the cars, both around a curve or whatever, but it really needs to be cleaned up. So if anybody wants to volunteer with me, I will do the cleanup. If somebody does the road, make sure the cars don't zoom by. But I think if we took pictures of the site, and kind of the condition. This is kind of one of our hallmark roads, right? And it's really terrible. So I'm anxious to do something there, and also because it's a case sample of how it moves into water, into wetlands and water areas.
I know exactly the area you're talking about, and I know how dangerous it is. I've been thinking about the same thing myself. And I'm wondering if maybe we ought to just contact Vdot about that area.
I want to document it with pictures so I can show it to you all on the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
Because it,
That'd be great. Yeah.
it's particularly challenging to figure out how to clean it up. I mean, Vdot would do that, but I would kind of like to document it in pictures because it's all roadside litter. Okay, so enough on that.
Actually, if I may,
Sure.
before we get too far down on Garth Road, we have, or before we leave Garth Road, excuse me, and turn into the horse farm there. So some of you may be aware that we, in the past, have taken advantage of the regional jails to do roadside litter pickup. COVID restrictions for the inmates have been very, very tight throughout this duration, and basically from last March through January or through at least February, I think, and perhaps into March, they haven't been able to do that at all. I've always been a little bit fuzzy on exactly where where those routes are. So I just had them done, mapped in GIS. I've got it open in front of me. Just got it a couple of days ago. So Garth Road is one of the entrance corridor roads going out to basically all the way to Whitehall. So we know that the regional jail is starting up operations as they can. They've been able to do just, I think, one run this year. But if you wanted to make a big effort or start a new kind of effort and you had safety concerns, I think it would probably be best to leave that to our public works staff in cooperation with the regional jail.
I agree with you, Lance. However, I think that this, there's a point here, which is, there's all this litter and then magically you send inmates and it disappears. That's not a solution to this problem. We need to raise awareness that this happens in our county all the time and that there is, behavior associated with it. And some of it's, I know, unintentional. People put things in the back of their boats coming off Lake Albemarle and it blows out. But, that's why I would like to take pictures and kind of showcase it and also show how it moves and goes into places where we really don't want to, vulnerable areas. The safety thing is, I could put pylons out in the road. I just don't know if I'm allowed to disrupt traffic that way. But so, I will probably go out there and take pictures and then I can call Vdot. But I do think there's a bigger point here around communicating to our community that this is a chronic, acute problem. And we have to get to the root of the problem. We can't rely on extremely low labor, to solve our problem for us. We got to be more, I think proactive in how we address this. So I appreciate what you're saying. I totally understand it. But I would like to make a point that this is a pretty significant issue. All right, let's move on. Jesse's not here. So Terry, could you do the report out for the operations subcommittee?
Sure. It's unfortunately not very eventful. And Phil, you can chime in if I'm forgetting. Where we landed was Jesse and Phil are going to reach out to the local hauler community. But I think the holdup was that Jesse is still getting a hold of Nelson. And I'm not sure how that affects our outreach, Phil, but we are exchanging emails and seeing how we can maybe divide this up so that we can get moving on it. Yeah.
I'm waiting for like data. So he's gotten some students to put together data.
Oh.
And I've reached out already to Happy Little Dumpster. And they're, I guess, theoretically interested. It's all just a matter of, if we give him how much, when, basically if we set up what would it be, he'll work up costs, and then we could approach the wineries, and see if that was something they were interested in doing, as one option. So,
Yeah, and I actually might have that. I just want to make sure it's the latest version. So Jesse had the 2 students who joined the call last time create a map that has all of the locations and what their tonnage or less than amount of glass was, and that was the data. Is that the data that you need, Phil?
yeah, exactly.
So I can dig that up and just make sure. I know Jesse's out of town this week, but we can keep it moving. So yeah, not a lot to report.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, just so those are things are planned. So it sounds like we should also sort of add as an action item, maybe, and I can help you with that, is the call to Scott to Fife. We can schedule it when you have more data, but it'd be probably good to get that rolling. And I think part of it is got to start getting some idea of budget of what this would look like, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that kind of relates to this is I sent around this new report called the 50 States of Recycling, the state by state. I don't know if people looked at that. It's a very interesting recycling report. It was commissioned by Ball. And what they're particularly interested in is container recycling. So they used a very well-recognized consultancy called Eunomia, and they normalized recycling to just containers, so that, normally out of single stream recycling, fiber is about 50% of the volume that's processed, 50 to 55. So they took just everything else, and then they looked at the fractions of, aluminum, glass, PET, HD, and polypropylene, and then looked at the state recycling rates for those container fractions. And the report on Virginia is very illuminating. I think the data for Virginia was we only recycle 9% of PET bottles, which was one of the worst rates in the country, I might add. I'm happy to reshare that report, but I think it's really worth looking at and understanding, what the opportunity is in our own community, and within our region. There's clearly a lot of uncollected containers, and the economic loss of it is immense, because we live in recycling country. We have all these reclaimers, around us. We have fiber and glass recyclers in Virginia. We have plastic recyclers in North Carolina. So it's really a shame that we're not taking more advantage of it. So I was thinking that report might actually be, somehow we could figure out how to put it into some of our communications or outreach or something like that. So I just wanted to mention that. So let's move on to planning and vision. And Peggy's not here, and Navarra's on paternity leave, and Teddy has resigned. So we have no representation from planning and vision, and which it concerns me. I will be frank, Navarra will be back soon, and Peggy will be too, but we do need to identify a new chairperson. I actually think there is a lot going on at the state level. And I think with some, access to some funding, federal funding opportunities, this could be a really important committee for us to activate and be very active on. So I don't think there's any report out today, but I want us to focus on that. So give some thoughts, and I'm thinking of you, Monty. Anybody who would like to be on the planning and vision committee. So are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to move into the governance and administration. So as I mentioned, Teddy has submitted her resignation. You know, she just has a standing conflict with our meetings. She was, you know, she felt like she had missed a lot of meetings and was seeing the conflict moving into the future. And I think that, you know, last year we had voted that if you're going to be on the committee, that we expected people to attend 9 out of 12 meetings a year. I've been lax on that because I think COVID has sort of upended all of our lives, but you know, that was what she had noted, and she really supported that. And you know, I think as general, I really want us to respect that commitment, but you know, in this past year of COVID, is so much has sort of changed. It seemed a little less important, but nevertheless, she has stepped down. Tom has stepped down. So we have some open slots. So I would really like everybody to give some thought as to people they think might be good additions to the committee. And please let me know. I'd like to see sort of a little summary of folks. And with that, I'd like to welcome Monty. And sorry, Monty, I didn't know the board had voted on your application last night. So I had sent this out before I found that out. And I thought, you know, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you for your interest and just maybe give you a few minutes to talk about, you know, what you do and your interest on the committee and how you think you can contribute.
Well, thank you. So I'm Monty Harris, the newest committee member. I'm a business guy. I'm 46, commercial real estate guy. Grew up in Lynchburg, went to UVA, wanted to get in commercial real estate, went to Atlanta in 1996 during the Olympics. My wife's from Lynchburg as well. After our third child kind of put me in a headlock and said, we got to get back to Virginia, which was a great call. Had our fourth kid. We live on Owensville on a road on a 35 acre, pretty small farm. And I traveled a lot, 2 or 3 days a week for work until COVID hit. And now I travel like once a month. And I think a lot of my business is going to go more virtual. I'm not going to have to travel as much. And I just really, with 4 kids and me coaching some of their sports, I just really hadn't done much for the community and decided to get active and have a, you know, passion for environmentalism ever since being a kid watching the Mutual of Omaha, if y'all remember those nature shows. And particularly with my youngest, my 8-year-old, who loves it every night. We watch some nature show and he's got all the questions and all that. And I mean, the thing that's got me fired up is just waste in general, just how much food is wasted, how much, you know, everything's wasted, how much litter my family of 4 creates, even when I try to, you know, stop that. It's just so easy to buy everything plastic and throw it away. And I think with COVID, it's only gotten worse. And I'm a pretty entrepreneurial guy. I define what I do as herd cats for a living. I kind of make these commercial real estate deals happen that a lot of people don't. There's a lot of no's and you got to kind of navigate to it. And I just feel like, I'll give an example of just one little thing that I gave is I go to 7-Eleven a lot, and every time, so I'd see somebody or every now and then buy my own beer, they'd make you put the beer in a bag unless it was a 12 pack. And ABC doesn't require that. And I pointed that out, and finally a couple people were like, well, the owner of this 7-Eleven makes us do it. And there are different convenience stores all over the US that are just like that. And the examples of things like that are just limitless. And so I just want to get affiliated with you all who have real experience and knowledge in this area so I can figure out kind of the path of least resistance to have the most impact. But I'm also not afraid to pick up the phone and call. You know, we were talking about Target not reusing cardboard, and we're not here yet, but to call the friggin' CEO of Target. And I've got this cool tool that gives me everybody's direct dial and cell phones and all that stuff. And, you know, carrot to stick, you know, I know be the squeaky wheel, you know, got good enough social skills to know when to be the good cop, bad cop, whatever. And once you've got a badge, so to speak, that I can be calling on behalf of SWAC or something and not just be some crazy citizen, it starts to give you more of a, you know, people will listen and maybe take the call. So I'm here to learn and not be the bull in the china shop, but I want to be kind of the point of the spear on some efforts to kind of get the most effective way to have the biggest impact. So that's kind of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Monty. Appreciate your passion. So I think one of the things I'll just say is you and I should have a follow-up call so I can sort of onboard you a little bit and some of our, processes and things like that and figure out what committee you might want to be on. So thank you. I want to mention that next month I have invited Minnow Mystery from Oregon DEQ. He used to live here in Albemarle County, he used to live in Crozet. He worked for me at Green Blue for many years. Very smart environmental guy. He's now working for the state of Oregon, which has the leading program in sustainable materials management, where they have really taken the concept of sustainable materials management. They have put it into policy, with statewide policy. He's working in the department that is responsible for implementing it across all sort of consumer materials, whether it's apparel, housing, packaging, you name it. So it's a pretty unique opportunity to have, this very cutting edge program talk to us about, how they think about materials, how do they evaluate where the most impactful actions can be, and, the sort of strategies they're undertaking. So he'll join us next month. And that is all I had for the agenda. And I know I see a couple of questions that we have. If there are just, we have about another 10 minutes or so before Rob is going to join us. Are there things people would like to discuss?
Go ahead. Sorry, Christine.
Oh, go ahead, Charisse.
I was just going to give an update on the solid waste and recycling plan. It'll be quick. Our region is updating the solid waste and recycling plan, the 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. We thus far, not officials, but people who work in the solid waste and recycling realm in Albemarle, Charlottesville, UVA, trying to get Fluvanna in because they're part of our SWPU, have not been successful. We've been meeting and updating the plan. We've gone through the goals, and our third meeting will be in April to go through the strategies and recommendations and to see who we can partner with to take ownership of those recommendations once we have them down pat, and then invite those entities to come to the meetings to discuss it with them.
Great. Therese, do you ever look for volunteers or do you need people to help out on any of those meetings or anything?
Right now, since it's an update, right now we are trying to use the localities plus UVA to get down pat what we want. And at that point, we will invite those people in. And honestly, it truly is a money issue. There's only so much money and time that TJPDC has to update it. So we're trying to get it in a structure. So when we invite those people in, it won't, we'll tackle those hard goals and have it on paper so it can sort of guide the process.
Gotcha.
But yes, we would like for a wider public to be involved, and before the plan is over, definitely.
Hey, Lance, Donna, and Liz, does an organization like TJPDC, first of all, I'm wondering if it's a nonprofit, do they qualify for any of the federal relief funds?
I don't know that. Maybe Charisse knows that.
It depends. We are looking for more funding for solid waste recycling and just environmental goals in particular. But the way that a lot of them that we've looked at thus far have been worded, it's for localities that have this many people, not the regional organization. And that's been the problem with TJPDC, is that we don't qualify for the ones that we've looked at. But we're searching.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question of Phil too? Because that was on my agenda to ask that question of Phil.
I have no understanding that we would qualify for funding.
So we are helping counties and municipalities, there's a separate allocation for nonprofits. So that's why I'm wondering, and TJ.
We're not a nonprofit. We are a regional government organization.
Well, you know what, I will ask, we're doing a lot of implementation support for the funds. I will ask, because I can't imagine that your type of regional organization is alone. Okay, that's good. Christine, I saw that you had a question. Do you want to bring that up?
Sure. I was just wondering, when there was a talk of schools and planning, just wondering if any conversation has been had about composting in schools with the lunch program, whether it's in the cafeteria, that there's the sort of the back end composting, that is that going to happen? Just wondering if that conversation has come up at all. Because I think it's an important one to have, and I hate to lose ground on that if any ground was had.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know specifically. I mean, it's been batted around a bunch over the years, and it's always, you know, you need somebody there in that individual school to be the person who's really championing it. I don't know if anybody's contacted Phil, because he had some contact with the schools initially, and he is their person, I believe, for that kind of thing.
Who was that? Who was that, Liz?
I just said Phil is, I can't remember the person's name. I'd have to look at my old emails, but Phil might know.
I would have the name. That all kind of died a year ago with,
Okay.
it was a little slow right before COVID, and COVID swept in and polished it off.
I'll try to find the name that I have while we're talking and put it in the chat. Okay.
Great. And the other thing I just want to mention, I know there was a lot of discussion about litter, and I just want to mention that Melanie and I were just discussing the possibility of radio ads. You know, when it comes to litter awareness and education, I think there's a lot that can be done. And we also talked about just reaching out to our country store owner and starting that discussion about litter and sort of partnering with them to get the message out there. Keep it in your car.
Does Vdot track litter quantities, or does anybody know? It seems like it really is on the increase, litter.
I think it's tracked through the Adopt a Highway program that the VDOT's kind of ally with. And so you can go, and then the individual Adopt a Highway people report into the,
Okay.
you know, but when the DOT is doing the cleanup, like when they're using other labor, or they're doing the cleanup, I do think they just report tonnage.
Okay.
So I have tried to cobble that together. It's not that easy to get a solid picture, which is why I think the Pennsylvania study is so insightful to show the big picture. And I will say, I think Keep America Beautiful is going to be releasing a new national study in days, literally, which is going to be a national report. And for the first time, they've measured both roadside litter and waterway litter. So, you know, the reason I'm so interested about this Garth Road situation is the connection between terrestrial litter and then what ends up in our waterways is very unclear. And it's a perfect example of how it happens on this particular stretch of road. So with that,
Sorry, I just thought of one more thing for the outreach committee, Christine, that I forgot about. The UVA, there's a class at UVA. Professor Amanda Nelson teaches a class on what kind of art and climate intersection. And usually, I don't know if you guys have seen or heard of Write Climate, WRITE Climate, but they do art projects every year. And this one, they have made these, it's called Fossil Flora, they're calling it. And they're going to hang, they've made these kind of like pieces of art from plastic trash, and they are going to hang it on trees. But what they were exploring, so they invited me to talk to the class, but they were exploring like what would be the call to action. And so I did mention like they're open to ideas on like where to place these in Charlottesville and Albemarle, and what would be that call to action. The only thing that, I mean, they kind of spurred that on me at the end of the call. And my only idea was, you know, if you had little factoids about plastic use, you know, that could be raising awareness. But if you guys think of, you know, a call to action, or, you know, they are in the next week kind of deciding, they will deploy those, that art on April 22nd.
Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. Definitely needs to be out in the
20.
county.
20th or 21st, but they're looking for prominent trees where it can capture people's attention and then have a call to action.
All right. Oh, that's really interesting. I have a tree in mind. All right, great. Well, with that, I would like to turn the meeting over. I'd like to welcome Rob Dubas from Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful. He is on the line. Hey, Rob, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, and nice to see you again, Ann.
Yeah. So Rob, I think you can take, I'm hoping you can take over the screen. I didn't think about this. Please work. Otherwise, we'll have to send it to Serena and she'll have to run it for you. But let's see if you can share your presentation with the group.
Okay. Okay, is that working for people?
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. My wife does a lot of seminars and presentations on Zoom all the time, and it seems like it works 100% of the time in practice, and then when you actually have to get up there and do it, it's hit or miss. So I'm a little newer to this than she is, so bear with me if I, but I think everyone should be able to see it okay. So yeah, my name's Rob Dubas. I'm with Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful. I'm a program coordinator here in Pennsylvania. And I was going to talk a little bit about our programs that we do, and then also a little bit about some of the research and studies that we've also have worked with recently. And I hope to, you know, if anyone has any questions, you definitely go ahead and ask them. And I would also like to hear, you know, what the litter and the legal dumping situations like in your area too. Okay. Oops. Okay. Real briefly, our mission is to empower Pennsylvanians to keep our communities clean and beautiful. We are the statewide affiliate for Keep America Beautiful, and we also work with 30 affiliates throughout the state and a ton of other community partners, state agencies, municipalities, watershed groups, et cetera, et cetera. This is our local network, and these are our official affiliates. And like I said, we have a ton of other groups that we also work with. Without all these guys, none of our work would get done. So it's really crucial that we found our network is crucial to what we do on a daily basis. Real quickly, some of our accomplishments since 1990. 148 million pounds of trash have been disposed of. Almost 200,000 miles of road have been cleaned. And again, speaking of those volunteers and community affiliates, 2.6 million hardworking volunteers. So again, without those folks, just nothing would get done, literally. This one we're really proud of. Recently this spring, our 1 millionth tire was collected and disposed of. It is not to say that all the tires in the state are have been taken care of. There's still a lot more out there, but we're quite proud of that statistic. I'm not sure about Virginia, but here we We do have a big problem with illegal tires being dumped, both historically that have been there for decades, and also new ones that have been dumped. They're not easy to dispose of around here. This is a couple before and after photos. This was a street in Philadelphia that there was a number of community partners in the city that worked on improving this, both for the litter and then also for repainting, and they just did a lot of work in this block.
They did. Did that involve graffiti remediation too?
For that one, yes. We have, that's something we're starting to work on a little bit more. We don't do cleanups ourselves personally, but we get resources and collect data on cleanups and what needs to be done. And graffiti is one that we've started tracking a little bit more. And anecdotally, it seems like it is on the rise. So I'm not sure if Virginia has that same issue, but it does seem like graffiti is on the rise. Oops, I'm sorry. This was a rural dump site in Washington County. And this is one that has been dumped on probably for decades. So not all of this trash would have been new, but it accumulates, and all kinds of problems from that. Again, it was a volunteer cleanup, and they did an excellent job. This was a vacant lot reclamation. This is in the city of Jeanette, which is actually not too far from our office. And it became a really nice community garden. And again, I just wanted to give praise to our volunteers, because without them, it just wouldn't get done. Our municipalities, our state agencies, just don't have the resources, the manpower, the money to do all the work that these guys do. So, and these guys are doing it for free. So again, I just want to say how important it is to have a great volunteer network. Some of our main programs, Pick Up Pennsylvania is in the spring, we do the coordination for the Great American Cleanup. That runs actually right now, it runs from March through May 31st. And then in the fall, we do a similar push for the International Coastal Cleanup, which is through the Ocean Conservancy. Even though Pennsylvania doesn't have a lot of coastal land directly, we look at it as any piece of litter or trash that's on land is going to probably find its way into a stream, find its way into a river, and then find its way into the ocean. So we try to get as much of that off the land as we can. Registered events can get access to cleanup supplies, and depending on their location and participating landfills, we could also help them out with free or reduced costs for getting rid of that trash. We do a road adoption program for local roads, and our state, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, does it for state maintained roads. Again, this is, we can get them free supplies and help with disposal costs. And then they also, of course, get a sign to show off, with their accomplishments. And hopefully, people are less likely to litter around where they see the volunteer groups are, cleaning up the roadside. Education. We have a number of education resources on our website that are free, because we feel that enforcement and cleanups can only take you so far, that we want to change behaviors. We want to have the next generation decide that they don't want to litter, they don't want to illegally dump. One of the things we're doing too is some of our resources have, our education pamphlets and resources have been translated into Spanish, and we're hoping to have more also translated here before too long. This is the program I spend most of my time working on, the Legal Dump-Free PA. It's two main components to that. The first is we have a way for residents to report dump sites that they find. They could do that anonymously, so they don't have to worry about any fear of repercussions. And sometimes they're finding sites that the authorities just don't know about. Real briefly, we had one that came in a year ago from a hunter who was out in one of our state game lands, and he reported to us. I talked to our state game commission, and they got me in touch with the regional land manager. At first, he told me that he didn't believe it existed. He thought maybe the person had the wrong location, because it was, from the pictures, it was a massive dump that had been added to for probably decades. A lot of both furniture, some tires, and then just loads and loads of broken glass, like beer bottles. But then he went out there and looked at the spot where the resident said, and it was there. So he was really thankful that this resident reported it, because otherwise it would have just kept getting worse and worse. And he recently called me and said that they had a big cleanup with both his staff and then a number of other volunteer groups, and got 2 large roll-up dumpsters filled with trash, plus I think he said 6 large barrels of broken glass. And he's also making a much bigger push on their parking lots and the trails around there too. So first of all, reporting these dump sites is crucial to getting them cleaned up. That's definitely the first step. Again, even though we don't do cleanups ourselves currently, we just don't have the funding for that. But we can get them in, these sites in touch with local municipal or state agencies, and then we can also help with resources to get those cleaned up, or enforce future dumping. And that's the second part of the main program I work with. It's a surveillance camera loan program where we loan and train users on wildlife cameras to catch illegal dumping in the act. We've a statistic real fast. Since we started, we've gotten 82 convictions and a little over $23,000 in fines, restitution, and fees. And that's money that goes, back to municipalities, back to agencies. This is a tool that was developed by Keep America Beautiful, and this sort of shows the loop to try to cut down on trash issues. I'm sorry, not to try to, that will cut down on trash issues. Number one is get the facts, and I think that's crucial. That ties into our illegal dump-free PA program, where residents can report sites. It's also some of the research and the studies that we've done, because if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're not going to know the sources of it. And if you don't know the sources of where that trash is coming from, you're never going to be able to stop it. So number one is crucial. Prioritize the behaviors. There's been another number of studies that have come out that just doing enforcement, this sort of stick, is not always the best approach. You have to have the carrot too. So by modeling, good environmental practices, good trash management practices, that can go a long way toward also changing people's behavior. And then, of course, develop and implement an action plan, and continual evaluation of how those plans are doing. Are they working? Are they not? Do you need to change things? And then obviously feedback too. But Ann, I'm assuming you're probably really familiar with this slide here.
Yes, we just had a webinar on it.
Did you? Okay. If there's anything you'd like to add on that, definitely feel free to.
No, that's good. Thanks.
Sure. These are a list of our recent studies and research publications. And I'm going to go through some various slides of these briefly. We actually check on time. Okay. And if these are all available on our website, or I could send the links to anybody too if you're interested. All these red dots on this map, unfortunately, are dump sites at this time of this survey. You can see right there, 6,487 sites were identified, and that is by no means all of them. The surveyors were only able to go on public land, roadsides. So anything that was back on on private land, they were not able to see. So unfortunately, that number is low. Fortunately, a lot of these have been cleaned up since then. A lot of these were legacy sites that, especially in areas where they just never had trash collection until more recently, people just sort of had a community dump where all your stuff went, and if no one cleans it up, it's not like it's going to go away by magic. So it just sat there. So, but like I said, luckily, a lot of them have been cleaned up since then. This is a real quick graphic or some stats on access to services. And I want to point out one thing about this first bullet point, where 85% of residents do say that they have curbside collection for waste. Pennsylvania does have a lot of communities that are very rural. So even though 85% seems like a high number, a lot of that is more around cities. So people in the more rural parts of the state are less likely to have curbside collection. A lot of times they have to, and again, this might be the same way in Virginia, but they have to find a hauler or a contractor themselves, and there's not a requirement to do so. We definitely found where there is access to waste and recycling collection, that illegal dumping is going to be less. That's not 100% of the case, obviously, where we have cities like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Reading, that do have, I'm sorry, Reading does not have automatic curbside collection, but like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia do, but in those cities, we still also see a lot of illegal dumping. So having access to curbside collection is not going to solve all your illegal dump problems, but it definitely does help. These are a couple common elements of illegal dumping. There's sort of 4 main groups that we've sort of categorized dumping into. Inactive legacy sites, those are those ones that have been around for decades and decades that have just not been cleaned up yet. Active commercial waste dumping, and a lot of times that one is maybe not a large company that's necessarily doing it, but it might be small-time contractors. It might be apartment cleanouts where it's someone who's paid $50 to clean out an old apartment after someone either was evicted or left, and there's an item still left in there. That one we're sort of watching a little bit because with COVID, there is an eviction moratorium. And once that's lifted, those apartment cleanouts unfortunately might increase. There's also active dumping of household waste, which is one that I personally don't understand, but in areas where they do have curbside collection, sometimes you still see people putting their bags of household waste on empty lots or on the side of the road. That one I just really don't understand. And theft of service, that's another one that it's not as apparent of a problem a lot of times because it's not trash that's being thrown on a roadside. What that one is trash that's maybe left at a recycling center that are items that they cannot accept. So for instance, if a place doesn't take tires and someone leaves their tires out front, that recycling center then has to pay to have those properly disposed of. It's also if a company has a dumpster that they pay for and people are throwing their household trash in there. Again, that's the trash that they have to pay for. We've definitely found that where the risk of detection and penalties are low, that people are more likely to illegally dump. I'm going to say that the risk of detection is more of a factor than the risk of penalties, because we do have areas where the penalties are not that low now, but they're still dealing with dumping problems. And part of that is because dumping is not easy to catch. Economic conditions, there is definitely a socioeconomic factor to illegal dumping. And that's a really complicated situation where, and that's one I wish I knew more about. But I think when you're talking about illegal dumping, that's something that has to be taken into account too. That just catching people that are dumping is not going to solve the problem. That sometimes there's some deeper issues that have to be looked at in the community. Blight being a big one. I'll check my time here. And I just realized I'm taking a lot longer on my slides than I thought. So I'm going to move through these next ones a little quicker. Just as I just had mentioned about enforcement and penalties, cleaning up dump sites, that's not going to stop dumping. It helps. Dump sites, if they are left not cleaned up, they're more likely to attract more dumping. As I mentioned down there earlier, the current penalties are a poor deterrent. The cost of illegal dumping per site is about $3,000 to clean up a site, about $600 per ton. So the penalties are much lower than that. I'll just leave it at that. Oh, and there's that slide right there with the fee, the amounts I just mentioned. Illegal dumping is an expensive problem. There's no doubt about that. And these are our recommendations. Increase residential access to services. That could be either curbside collection, or that could be collection centers where people could take their trash to. Establish deterrence to commercial dumping. A lot of times drop-off sites are only for residents, so you do also need to make sure that contractors have a place to take their items to, and build awareness around this economic, social, and environmental impacts of dumping. That's, I think, a crux of what you have to do. People have to care more about their environment if you're going to stop dumping and littering. Deterrents like enforcement, penalties, fines are only going to go so far because you can't catch everybody. But that is part of it though too, because by establishing more better penalties, it will at least get people to stop and think about it and recoup some of the money to clean up those dump sites. Our litter study that we worked on, I'm going to go through these slides quickly. First thing we wanted to do was see what was out there, quantify the litter, see where it most likely came from. And we also worked on a study, a cost study, to see what municipalities are paying for prevention of litter and for cleanup of litter. And also an attitude study to see what the public thinks about litter and dumping. These are the sample areas for the visible litter study. And we have a number of fact sheets related to this study on our website. Briefly though, the biggest items, the above 4 inches large, were plastics, particularly beverage containers. For the smaller items, the biggest thing was cigarette butts. And you can see that there are 43% of the small items counted were cigarette butts. Beverage containers were the largest found for the larger items. 500 million pieces of litter on Pennsylvania roadways. I think that number alone speaks to the problem. One of the important things to do too is look at where those sources are, because only then can you, put in place policies, or maybe tweak your enforcement to stop those sources. And you can see right here, 59% from motorists, and pedestrians are not a small amount either. This was looking at the types of road and what was found, and the source. So interstate from motorists, which makes sense, but even local roads, a lot of times it's still motorists who provide a lot of that. Although for local roads, pedestrians are a little higher on that one, which makes sense because people are more likely to walk on a local road. But again, I think by not having this information, it's a lot harder to focus your enforcement and your educational, as well as your infrastructure. The cost study, we were looking at what do municipalities spend on prevention, education, enforcement, and cleanup. And we looked at nine cities, and together they spend more than $68.5 million annually, which is a staggering number. It's as I'm sure, same thing in Virginia, cities, there's better spaces to spend that money than picking up litter. There's a lot of other places that money could go toward. You could also see that the education outreach is usually, for a lot of these cities, it's a lot less than the money they spend in cleaning it up. And enforcement is also an expensive component of this as well. And I hope this slide is, hopefully it's not too small to see those numbers, but I could send that study out to anybody who would like to see that more in depth.
So Rob, can I ask you, did you do any modeling if you measured 2.4 million people in this study? Isn't the population of Pennsylvania like 12 million or something?
This was just looking at those specific cities.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you extrapolated this to the rest of the state, the cost would be crazy. Because less than 20% of the state.
Yeah, I think that was just because we were looking at these nine cities. Yeah, let me double check on that for you. But yeah, these were just, I think this was just the population of those 9 cities. I do not believe that we extrapolated it out to the rest of the state.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My guess is part of the reason for that is that the numbers would be very different for rural communities than it would be for the cities. They probably spend, my assumption would be very little on especially the education and the abatement and probably also the prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not. I guess I'm not sure that could be extrapolated out to the rest of the state. But you know what? Let me check with Shannon on that, and I'll ask you. I'll get back to you on that one if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
This was a public attitude study that was done by phone call. You see right here, 95% of people say that litter is a problem. And I'm honestly not sure why it's not 100%. 89% say that they've seen litter in streams, rivers, or lakes. And that is definitely not a number you want to see. Because as I had mentioned before about the coastal zone program, all that stuff that's in the streams, that's going right out to the Chesapeake Bay, that's going out to Lake Erie. And once litter gets into the water, it's a lot harder to clean up. So that's not a good statistic to see at all. Fast food packaging. And I'd be curious, I'd be definitely thinking that that number is increased after COVID because a lot more people are eating out. A lot more fast food, I think, through the drive-through is being eaten out, and some areas, did have either reduced or garbage collection, or they had to cancel it altogether for a period of time because of COVID. So I'm going to guess that number has actually gone up. The next one, when asked where is it acceptable to litter, 98% said nowhere. Again, I'm not sure why that's not 100, but this next one here, 6% of residents have been caught or fined or know of someone who's been caught or fined. I think that really shows how hard enforcement is on litter or on illegal dumping, litter particularly. A lot of times to give a litter citation, you have to, a police officer or a code enforcement officer or a state ranger, they have to see it happen. And if on a busy highway, people are driving 70 miles an hour, someone throws a cigarette butt out the window, even if you do see it happen, when I've been behind someone and I see a cigarette butt come bouncing down the side of the road, first of all, you don't know exactly which car it came from. And second of all, it's just one of those things that's really, really hard to catch. Enforcement of litter is very, very hard. I think we have to look at, behavior changes through education, through other, modeling appropriate behaviors. And enforcement is not going to stop that alone. It's a piece, it's definitely a piece, but it's not going to stop that alone. And the next one here, 82% said that people who litter are not at all likely to get caught or fined. We actually just recently we requested data from our state court system, the administrative court system, and we wanted to see exactly how many people have been cited for litter or illegal dumping across the state over the past 5 years, and what is the average fine they pay, and we'll also see how long it takes for those to go through the court system. But we are curious to see how that corresponds with this. When people say that they are not likely to get caught, that data just came in, so we haven't had a chance to actually look at it yet. But again, it is very hard to catch people who are littering.
Hey, Rob, I think we're
Yes.
almost out of time, and I think people have
I'm
some
sorry.
questions for you.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, this was actually my last main slide, so go ahead.
okay. I know one question that I agree with, I think is really important. People are wondering where you got the funding for these state level studies.
Okay. A lot of our money comes through the DEP. We also got money through PennDOT, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. And some also private foundations, and I think those are the three main types of sources.
And who did the studies for you? Was that Burns and McDonnell?
For the litter study, yes. Yes, some of the previous studies, the legal dumps surveys, that was MSW.
Yeah, MSW Consultants. Yeah.
Correct, yes. And then Nestor Resources did another one of our legal dump studies.
Hey, can you move back to your last slide? Because I think
I'm sorry, yeah.
To do that. But I know that one of the questions is what are the key takeaways that you think a community should take and prioritize to address litter?
Well, I'd say that modeling appropriate behaviors is one of the most important ones. That's through education, that's through municipal leaders making it a priority, either by showing up at cleanups themselves, or responding to when residents complain about there's a pile of trash sitting in a corner, and it's been there for the past 2 years, getting that kind of stuff cleaned up. A program that was just started in my municipality, actually by a volunteer group, is they've started giving out certificates to businesses that have done a good job of keeping their lots cleaned. And so far, it seems that that's had a positive return. It's a really low cost. It doesn't cost much to print out a piece of paper, but it seems like the businesses have been really appreciative of that recognition. And we've definitely been appreciative of the fact that they keep their lots clean.
Liz, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I've got tons of questions, but I know we don't have that much time. When you talk about modeling behavior is so important, who is doing that modeling of behavior and how?
Good question. So I think that could be modeled by anybody. And I think it depends, well, down to the most basic level, parents, teachers, modeling the behavior for their children, recycling, proper recycling.
But is this your education program? I mean, is this part of your whole, I'm trying to figure out what Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful is doing to model behavior, or is that just a general thing we need? I guess
sure.
My question is.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, through our education resources, that models behavior. We also have a program called Litter-Free School Zone, where teachers have a curriculum, and they'll do things with their classes, cleaning up litter around the school. They'll get a certificate, and I think that would help model it. For adults, I think by showing volunteer cleanups, by the programs that they've done, I think stressing how hardworking our volunteers are, that could help model that behavior. Some of our affiliates run recycling centers, and we recently got grant money to do some education materials for them. So what about 3 of them chose to do was videos. So we partnered with a videographer to produce videos about what kind of things can be brought there, why it's important to recycle and recycle appropriately too. Don't bring things that they can't accept. Don't bring things in a way that they can't accept them. So styrofoam or plastic that's dirty, plastic that is a number that they can't accept.
So you don't have, you already said in your thing that, in your discussion, that we know that a lot of littering comes from people who are of lower socioeconomic groups because they don't have the money or whatever. How do you reach out to those folks? I mean, what I feel like sometimes we do here is preach to the choir. And what I'm trying to figure out is how we really do more than that.
Okay, yeah, and that's a fair question. And a lot of times it is preaching to the choir. You're right. I think the best way to do that is, again, work with volunteer groups. Every community has, I think, people there who care about that community. There are probably people who've lived there for a long time. And I think you really have to bring those people in. They have to feel valued. And from personal experience, I know that's a tough one. Sometimes there's friction between those community groups and the municipalities. Like the municipality where I live in, it's a large municipality. We have a lot of trash issues, for a big part just because of our size. We do have community groups that do a lot of great work. And I think sometimes the municipality feels that these groups are just complaining about the amount of litter they see. And that causes frustration with the community group. So I think it's important to listen to those groups when you're an official. And I think it's also important for the officials to show that they understand the concerns and that they they're addressing them. I think it's also important for them to show that these are hard issues to address. Again, for instance, my municipality, they've done a number of enforcement policies that have had mixed results. And again, because it is so hard to catch dumping and littering in the act. So I think it's important for them to also be to temper expectations with citizens, so that they know that it's the municipality is not going to be able to solve it by themselves.
You know, I wanted
So-
to hear Liz, along that, because Rob had a slide earlier on kind of the theory of behavior change. And I think that one of the things that when you talk about how you engage with communities that have behaviors you don't want, the first part is really understanding why those behaviors are happening. And I think for both litter and dumping, we know that convenient access to solid waste management and the cost are often the root causes, but you have to do that research in your own community to figure out, could be it's sort of a historic behavior, you know, we just dump it in the back five. But I think the first step is really to understand what the root cause is. So we know, for instance, that access to vehicles, to mobility is also a barrier, that people don't have cars to take things to, you know, someplace. And we've seen that over and over again. And I think getting that idea of what are the hurdles, so that you can then implement ways to lower those hurdles are how you start to influence the behaviors you want. But you have to have a pretty deep understanding. So there's no sort of like silver bullet. You have to be very targeted about what behavior you're trying to focus on, and then identifying what are the hurdles that, you know, that community is engaging in that you want to influence. And
I was just trying to figure out what they were doing specifically for modeling behavior, and you've answered that, Rob. Thank you. And I'll give some other people some chance to answer things, but I think I'm going to need to go to your website and read, because probably a lot of it is on there. A lot of my questions I've written down, and also I would love to actually see the study, not just the results. So if you could share that with Anne, if she doesn't already have that, and then she could mail it out to the committee, that would be wonderful. Sure. And I'd love to also, one other thing, just know how you're funded.
Oh, so my program is funded through our Department of Environmental Protection. We receive quite a bit of funding through them. We also receive private donations, but a lot of state funding for my program.
Okay, thank you. I'll give somebody else a chance. Thank you.
Well, we're beyond time, folks, but while we have Rob here, if you have questions, let's ask them, but otherwise we should probably wrap it up. So any last questions? All right, I think we're done. Well, Rob, thank you so much.
I was trying to unmute. I was talking while I was breaking. Let me just ask one more question.
Sure, go for it.
I was intrigued by the fact that you said that you guys lend out cameras, wildlife cams, to people. They report to you, and then you report to the police. How does that work?
Okay, no, they don't report to me. They have to handle that themselves, and we'll help as much as we can. But we train them on how to use the cameras and give them help with the enforcement piece if they need it. We'll make sure that they know about what types of ordinances they might be able to file citations under. But yeah, they handle that piece of it themselves.
So the police department isn't just responding to the cam. These folks are trying to find maybe something in their neighborhood. Maybe somebody is doing that. They put up the camera, they watch the film, and then figure out how to report it themselves. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sort of, yeah. So they would have to, they have that piece in place already, though, as far as who they're going to report it to. And sometimes it's actually the code enforcement officer who we work with directly. So he'll review the footage, and then he'll handle the citations from that. Same with like, we worked with police directly to do that. So it's not always that they have to, and we wouldn't work with someone who didn't already know who their enforcement partner is going to be. We want them to already have that, and so that once they get those pictures, they're not, sort of being wasted.
And these wildlife cameras are supplied, the money comes again from your DEP.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The
All right.
the DEP funds that through a program or a fund that is from enforcement fines that they've received for environmental laws, and then so we're sort of turning that around and hopefully catching more people breaking the law.
Okay. All right. I just want to say thank you very, very much. I think the rest of our board, we have one other supervisor on, Donna Price, but I'm going to share this video with the rest of our board. We're all very, very interested in this. And we very much appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us. And Anne, thank you for inviting Rob. It's been very interesting. And I'm hoping you'll share your PowerPoint with Anne too, if she doesn't already
Sure,
have that.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much for having me. And always interested to hear, what goes on in other states, because, for instance, a lot of our program, my surveillance camera loan program, we learned a lot of that from Keep Texas Beautiful. And we've shared our information with groups in Ohio, in North Carolina, I think even a group in Canada one time. So there's no reason for anyone to reinvent the wheel. I think it's really important, since none of us have all the resources that we would hope to have. I think it's really important to share the knowledge, share the resources, share what works and what doesn't work.
Well, we certainly are at the very beginning of this. Our police department will put up cameras from time to time and catch folks. But it really, we don't have the dedicated money at this point to really do this. And we're just in the last few years pushing to have the convenience centers. So we have a long way to go, and we have a lot of illegal dumping. So this has been really good to listen to that.
It sounds like you're on the right path though. So,
we're working.
Yeah. And if they have any questions about cameras, I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any knowledge from our experience with them.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Let's adjourn and see you all in a month. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.